Hi everyone, this is my week 4 discussion post, and the figure that that kind of caught my eye the most this week from the readings was Thomas Aquinas. I thought that he was very interesting because both kind of his connections to other figures, like how he learned a lot from Aristotle's teachings, and how he even cited that he, viewed him as a very influential person, and that he viewed Aristotle's teaching as very strong for the Christian faith. So I think that it's interesting that he kind of took some of his own theology and thoughts about Christianity from what Aristotle taught, which I thought was interesting. And I also thought that it was very interesting how he focuses on combining faith and reason, and how he didn't want his faith to just be an imaginary thing based with no logic or reason to it. So he made the the things, he made lists that could kind of prove God's existence, like the cause and effect, then contingency, and then he also points to degrees as one of the things that can help prove God's existence. So obviously I'm not gonna go into all of those right now, just because that takes a long time, more than 4 minutes, but I think it's interesting how he focusing on the reason and the logic behind stuff was able to give a lot of proofs for God's existence through things that you can see, and logical arguments for the cause and effect argument, stuff like that, where when you're looking at it through a logical standpoint, even if you don't believe in God, they still sound logical, it's true things that can be used as evidence for God's existence. So I think that that's really cool, that he kind of came up with a lot of those arguments, which I thought was really interesting, because I've learned about in my high school, I went through and learned about so many of those arguments in my theology classes in high school, but it's interesting learning about who they're from and who kind of developed those arguments, because they're such widely known things. And the quote that I thought kind of summed up some of his teachings well from the text was, "Over and over, Thomas teaches that grace or divine help is necessary for humanity to will and do good." So obviously, that's kind of just one of his bigger teachings that I thought was very interesting. So that was the quote I chose to do. And some connections with the lectures that I found were kind of wider connections than some of the other weeks. I kind of saw how the lectures talked about history of the church and the role of the church and stuff, and I kind of made some connections between how influential Thomas Aquinas was at that time with the teachings of the church, and how he was able to develop some of these arguments at that time. So and also about how the lecture talked about how the church is spiritual and intellectual. So I think that that's kind of another thing that Thomas teaches through his stuff. So that's what I thought about it.